Income considerations for Medicare beneficiaries that would like to apply for extra help through Medi-Cal. Hello, I am Kevin Canals, an independent health insurance agent, and I help people with Medicare plans. And there are always questions about whether these individuals are eligible for the extra help through Medi-Cal. So it can be a little bit tricky because it's based on the income. Now, the Medicare Savings Program is what people are talking about when they talk about Medi-Cal extra help. And the eligibility and enrollment for the Medicare Savings Program goes through your local county Medi-Cal office. They determine the eligibility and enrollment after you apply. And it is based on your income, not your assets, at least in California. Now, with the Medicare Savings Program, depending on, there's different levels: qualified Medicare beneficiary, specified low-income Medicare beneficiary. If you do qualify, they may pick up the Part B premiums for you. They may also cover the costs of the cost sharing for original Medicare Parts A and B. And if the income is low enough, you may also get extra help for the prescription drugs and drug plans. And this is all based on the monthly income. And for many people, it is pretty straightforward. Their monthly income is just comprised of, their Social Security retirement check. But for many people, there are little income streams and not all the income is counted, so it can get kind of complicated. If you look at the forms for the income calculations, it looks fairly straightforward. There's a little section. The first section is the unearned income of the applicant. Section 2 is the unearned income of the spouse if you are married. The third section is the earned income of you and your spouse. And then they just total it up. It's not that easy. For some people, it can be a little bit complicated. And that's why I'm doing this video, is to alert you that if you do have a complicated monthly income situation over the year, you want to get all your documents together to show exactly what your real income is. And this is not a complete list, but it'll give you a flavor of what Medi-Cal is looking for and how complicated some of this stuff can be. So the income is broken up into 3 different categories: your unearned income, earned income, and exempt income. Yeah, not all income will be added into the calculation. The unearned income, that's going to be your Social Security retirement, pensions, veterans payments, railroad retirement, some insurance, such as unemployment, disability, and workers' comp, but that's where you need to provide specific documentation because some of that insurance payment may not be considered. Unearned income will also include inheritances, gifts, dividends, royalties, interests, prizes, and that's, again, a complicated source because you may say, well, I don't know what the interest is going to be. Sometimes I don't receive these dividends on a regular basis. How? And again, that's where you need to have the documentation so that the Medi-Cal eligibility worker can, maybe sometimes just take an average and smooth it out throughout the year. Earned income, generally from, a job, that's going to be your wages and tips, self-employment, net profit from any business that you're running, certain job training payments, IHSS, in-home support services payments, and those generally are considered income if you are receiving that income and you do not live in the house with that family member. Net income from real property, such as room rentals and the sale of agricultural products. And that can get really complicated in terms of actually going through the math to figure out what the actual monthly income is. So the net income from property, and there's many different rules surrounding this, is generally the gross income minus expenses. And that can be straightforward, the Schedule C of your income tax return. But if the income comes from rooms that you are renting in your house, then the rules get a little bit more complicated, because you need to know how many rooms in the house, how many rooms are you renting, are you providing any other services, the expenses for the maintenance and upkeep, and how it's all broken down. And it doesn't necessarily mirror the IRS calculations. There is in-kind income as well, support or maintenance received from non-family members. So if someone is helping pay your bills and they're not a family member, for your housing, utilities, food, clothing, and that is all based on the market value, and that is considered income. And just as I'm speaking, I'm thinking of different programs that you might get from the utility company. Is that going to be considered income? I'm not entirely certain. That's why you need to have your documentation to show Medi-Cal whether it is or isn't income to you in the month. There are other income considerations, like who owns the income stream. Now, if you're married, most income is considered community property, but there are times when a spouse has a dedicated income stream that is not owned or controlled in any manner by their spouse. Is the income even available to you? Is it unavailable? Is it accruing in an account that you can't touch? And the Medi-Cal eligibility worker will take that into account. Is it apportioned over time? Does it fluctuate? And that's where the Medi-Cal eligibility worker needs to look at that and then kind of maybe take an average, smooth it out over the year to determine what that contribution on a monthly basis is to you. Some income is exempt from the calculations. Property tax refunds, public assistance you may be receiving, disaster assistance, emergency assistance if you have been driven out because of a fire or a flood and you get help from the local government or the federal government. Social services such as the IHSS, and generally if you live in the home and are taking care of a member, are paid for that in-home support services. That generally is not counted. There are payments to Native Americans and Alaska Natives that are not counted. But here again, this is where it gets tricky, because sometimes some of the income, if it's derived from like interest and dividends from an account where the money's been put into it, that can be counted. So that's why you have to have all your documentation. Now, they can also reduce your monthly income by certain expenses, educational expenses, part of the disabled child support payments can be deducted. Guardian or conservator fees can be deducted from your income. There are student deductions, and there are deductions for income received if you are blind or disabled. So it can be rather complicated. My message is to try and pull all of that information and documentation together. Don't necessarily consider that you are not eligible for the Medicare Savings Program and the extra help. Apply, apply, apply. You may not get the very full top-level qualified Medicare beneficiary. Maybe you'll only receive help for the prescription drug portion of Medicare, but that's better than nothing at all. It can be arduous, it can be difficult, but you just need to apply. So if you have any questions or comments, you can leave those down below. I'll really try to answer them, but this is really complicated, and I don't want to get into any situations where I'm giving improper advice, because sometimes these rules can change. So again, apply, apply, apply. Otherwise, for insuremekevin.com, I'm Kevin Knaus.